Base 3 held many horrors beyond description, but for a brief period, Hicks found the place familiar, even comforting in a way. With General Spears absent, and with his authorization, Hicks was able to explore the base freely. His first task was to take a shower, a luxury that had eluded him for too long. Something about being clean and in fresh fatigues made a man feel better. When you faced death as often as Hicks had, minor shit like crazy generals didn't seem so bad. While he couldn't say he felt the same detachment about the long nap some of the Zen martial arts boys had, Hicks had looked death square in the face enough times so that it didn't scare him. You lived or you died, that was how it went, and when your number came due, you got collected. He thought his was at the top of the pile several times, but death had only grazed him when he reached for another. Fuck it. A hot shower and clean clothes, however, were tangible, something you could relate to in the here and now. Being cooped up on that drone ship hadn't given him any love for it, but Hicks found himself walking toward the vessel because he had an idea. The thing had been unloaded and it would need new fuel cells and probably some repair before it had any chance of being spaceworthy again. It sat in the middle of one of the big prefab storage areas, a mostly dark and very cold room that apparently wasn't worth spending more than the minimum on for light and heat. Hicks's footsteps echoed hollowly as he walked across the flooring toward the American. The cargo bay door was still open and the ship's internal lights were off. He walked up to the expanded metal incline and slapped the light button. It was a little warmer inside the ship, the fuel cells' heat sinks radiating their excess warmth into the air. After a few seconds, Hicks heard what he expected. Bootsteps outside the ship. Whoever was following him was approaching. Hicks saw the man step into the cargo bay, but not who he was. The hangar lights were dim and the ship's standby lamps were not much brighter. The man looked around. "Over here," Hicks said. It was Powell. He gave Hicks a cut wave. Hicks shut up. Watched as the Major pulled some kind of electronic sniffer from his belt and touched control on it. A green LED lit on the little black plastic rectangle. "Okay, clear." "Walls have ears?" Hicks said. Powell answered. "And the ceiling has eyes, everywhere on the base except in here. Another few days and this ship will be bugged too. Spears. He's insane, you know." Hicks was aware he'd have to tread through these next few moments very carefully. "No, I don't know. Tell me about him," Hicks said. "He lives for his scheme of retaking the Earth and being the hero of the millennium. He thinks everybody is out to get him. He runs a poison scan on his food and still makes an orderly taste it first. He sees conspiracies everywhere. In normal times, the mind-benders would be lining up to write books about him." "Normal times," Hicks said. "Been a while since then." Powell nodded. "Yes." The man paused, sighed, seemed to gather his thoughts. "Maybe we're beyond reason as a species. Maybe what mankind needs is a sociopathic psychotic killer to match the aliens." He shook his head. "But you don't believe it," Hicks said. "No, it would be a step backward, a return to the caves. We're better than that. We have achieved civilization, the stars. We can't go back. Not to defend Spears, but dialogue doesn't seem to work too well on these things," Hicks said. "I understand that, but the queens are intelligent. They can be communicated with. We've done it here. Our queen is cooperating, after a fashion. They want what we want, to survive and to thrive. If you're preaching the Brotherhood of Lifeline, Major, you're wasting your time. I've seen my friends slaughtered by these fuckers. I was on Earth just before they nuked a big chunk of it rather than get eaten alive." I know. I'm not saying we should hug the aliens and expect smiles all around. Sharing the same world with the aliens isn't likely. They're too much like we were 500,000 years ago, too egocentric to think of life forms other than their own. No, I'm not suggesting such a thing, but we are supposed to be intelligent to be civilized. War is stupid. Annihilation of an entire species is barbaric. Funny, coming from a major in the Colonial Marines. Not all military men are killers, Sergeant. Neither are all officers automatically savage morons. Could have fooled me, Hicks said, but he grinned. Powell was somebody with a conscience, and he was obviously trying to do something here. Hicks wasn't sure just what, yet, but he had a feeling he was going to find out. "Okay, so what's the scat, Major? Why are you telling me all this and risking your own ass?" Powell nodded and took a deep breath. He told him everything. The colony, the experiments, General Spears' grand plan, his own reports. He had all the evidence on disk to prove it. To ensure trust during this dangerous conversation, Powell made sure not to leave out any details. He's been feeding the experimental subjects all kinds of chem the scientists say might have some effect on the things. We don't know if it's working or not. The body chemistry of these creatures is astounding. Hicks touched the scar on his face without conscious thought. He realized what he was doing, dropped his hand, and said, "Yeah, I noticed. Acid blood probably fucks up your basic tranquilizer pretty good. We've done some conditioning exercises with the Queen. She doesn't appear particularly concerned with the fate of individual drones. We've killed them, and she doesn't display distress in any way that shows. But if we threaten or destroy any of her eggs, she becomes very agitated. Fetch the stick, or we squash the babies." Something like that, yes. It seems to work. And the Queen controls the drones. We aren't sure how, some kind of telepathic or extremely low-frequency radiopathic waves, something. We've put a single human subject in a chamber filled with alien drones, given him an egg and a blowtorch with which to threaten it, with the Queen watching, and none of the aliens touched the man. Jesus, you cold-blooded fuckers. It wasn't my idea, Hicks. Spears runs the show here. Why doesn't somebody put a bullet in him? Shove a grenade under his bidet? He has his supporters, and like I said, he's very careful. Hicks shook his head. He trusts you? Not really. But you could put him away. Then you'd be in command. I'm not a murderer, Powell said. Not even Spears. Powell chewed on his own comments for a second. Listen, he said. I joined the service to do my duty for my planet. I was studying for the priesthood at the time. I planned to finish my training and become a chaplain. It didn't work out. I got sidetracked, so I wound up here. What Spears has done sickens me, but the path to the light is not by creating more darkness. Hicks stared at the man. He'd run into guys like Powell before. The military had to have a certain number of medics and religious types. Their bent, because of what they did or who they were before they joined up, was usually pacifistic. If you were wounded in battle, you needed somebody to staple you back together, so a surgeon. If you're emotionally burned out, some kind of counselor, though Hicks himself hadn't ever had much use for those, psychologists or fathers. They were necessary, but you didn't want one next to you when the grill flamed on and the other side started shooting. And you didn't want one in charge when your ass was on the line. It wasn't that way with all of them. Hicks had seen medics who would just as soon carve your heart out as smile at you, and men of various gods who would cheerfully burn a stadium full of small children if they thought that's what their deity wanted. But Powell wasn't one of those. And given the situation, that was bad news. So what did the man want? Why was he telling Hicks all of this? Abruptly, it dawned on Hicks exactly why. Powell was one of those who bought his meat flash-wrapped at the market, or pretended it was soy pro, but still ate it. He wasn't a hunter himself, but he wasn't above enjoying the taste of the game, once it had been sanitized and neatly packaged. Once the thing had been gutted and the blood drained, he would eat it, but he wouldn't hunt and kill it. And he at least knew a hunter when he saw one. Hicks nodded to himself. Fine, he could live with that. He was used to doing the dirty work himself. The Queen has learned to obey the General, Powell said. He leaned against a bulkhead, staring at the floor. Obey him, Hicks said. They'd been in the little ship a long time. Hicks was beginning to feel stiff and cramped, but he wanted to hear as much of it as Powell could get out before they had to break this off. Oh yes, Spears started training her like a dog, used a cigar lighter. He'd have a trooper with a flamethrower roast an egg while the Queen watched. After she calmed down, he'd put a human into the testing cage with her. When she went for the bait, he'd pop the cigar lighter on and hold it next to another egg. The Queen picked it up fast. You could leave a man with her and a dozen drones for hours and none of them would touch him. She's not stupid, the Queen. It seems odd, though, Powell continued, that the Queen would sacrifice the drones without a second thought, but she'll obey Spears to protect the eggs. Hicks shrugged. She's an alien. What drives her doesn't drive us. Maybe her responsibility ends when the damn things hatch. That's what Spears thinks, but she controls the drones. Telepathically, empathically, we don't have the sophisticated gear here to be sure exactly how. But it isn't with sound or odors or any visual signals we can detect. We've run tests where the drone was a click away in an airtight chamber, no possible way it could see or hear the Queen, and Spears made it do what he wanted. You have more than one queen, Hicks said. Powell blinked. How did you know that? Somebody is laying eggs in the air processor, unless you're ferrying the queen from here back and forth. No, you're right. We put one egg from this nest over there. Spears did it himself. There are a score of drones there now tending to the young queen. This particular development had been a pleasant discovery for Spears. He, along with Powell and the base scientists, studied the process closely. The alien queens could reproduce in a kind of modified parthenogenesis, and the drones were mostly neuters. The alien queens could reproduce in a kind of modified parthenogenesis, and the drones were mostly neuters. There were some males. The labos had found a few, and indications were that there could be a battle-like sexual intercourse between the two sexes. The available males, when they reached some critical number, fought each other to the death, leaving only a single survivor, who then lay claim to the queen. She made him work for it, slammed him all over the place, and if he survived this battering, worse than the fights with the other males, the queen would submit to his advances. The male's triumph would be short-lived. Within seconds after this hard-contested mating was consummated, the queen would kill the hapless male. The scientists babbled on about genetic diversity and such, but it didn't matter. If there weren't any males around, the queen could do it herself. And if there weren't any queens around, one of the drones would undergo what the scientists called a hormone storm. And when it was done, the drone would be a queen. Hicks shook his head in disgust at the confirmation of his suspicions. Spears doesn't know what the hell he is messing with here. He thinks he does, Powell interjected, and he's done more with them than anybody else, Hicks. Last month, he took a dozen of the things and had them marching in close order drill. He's taught several of them how to hold a modified M69 machine gun and had them shooting the weapon. Jesus. Yes. It's Maggie's drawers for accuracy. They can't hit anything smaller than a wall, even at close range, but still. Hicks nodded. A monster with a machine gun. The only advantage men had in battle with these things was their weaponry. If they were armed as well as human troops, they'd be unstoppable. The drones are stupid, Powell said, but even a chimp can be trained to shoot fairly straight. And we think the Queen's connection with the drones gives her the ability to see what she sees. And the Queen is probably as smart as we are, according to the psychologists. Buddha fucking Christ. Crude, but apt. Hicks stood, paced across the room. But what's the point? Earth is history. When we left there, it was already nearly overrun. A few more years and everybody there will be dead. A few clean neutron bombs after that would sterilize the place. All this cowboy shit is stupid. This isn't about saving the Earth or anybody on it, the Major said. It's about Spears and his ideas of personal glory. Or something. I don't know what for sure. Hicks nodded. All right, let's get to the bottom line here, Major. Powell sighed. Enough people have died, Sergeant. This has to end. Spears is at the air processor plant. There's a magnetic storm heading this way. Sunspot activity on the primary is up. Spears will be delayed some hours, maybe even a day or two before he can lift and return to the base. We need to begin our preparations now. Hicks nodded. All right. As Hicks began to leave, Powell stressed the importance of the precious time remaining before Spears' return. It's our only chance, damn it. Spears is already loading those things into the transport vessels. We won't be alone. Hicks turned back, offering a warning. You know, there's a word for what we're discussing. Yes, Powell said. Survival. Now, in the midst of a military coup, Hicks's focus narrowed on his preparations. His thoughts would stray to the endgame of this operation and the fate of his target. Hicks thought to himself, confronting the strange affinity he had for General Spears. When I joined the Marines, I was proud to serve my country. They want that. They want you to think you're doing something right and noble. Sometimes you believe it. Sometimes it's even true. Spears believed, and the purity of his belief was terrifying. I understood completely. In many ways, I shared the intent of the General's vision. Medical types look at insanity like some sort of disease, but I think it's more mechanical than that. Like a broken connection or a malfunctioning computer chip. Life, thought, emotion, just electrical pulses passing between different lobes of the brain. When something mechanical fails, you don't waste time with psychology. You either repair it or replace it. I knew I'd have to kill him. In this series, I'm recounting the Earth War, as depicted in the Aliens comic series. The accounts are explored as originally published, despite certain names, locations, and other events having been altered over time. For more on the Earth War, you can check out the accounts of the Earth War playlist on the end screen, and stay tuned for the latest videos. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very special thanks goes out to YUTANI executives, EmYarUk, and Lady Anne, part of our Patreon Hive. Thank you guys. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.